Hello, Gregg for Online Tennis Instruction. I recently received an email from a student asking how to hit a backhand overhead. So we're going to take a look at that. Now, first thing, we just compare it to a normal overhead. So usually what's most likely going to happen, you may find yourself in this position and you have to push yourself back. But the key thing is first step's a crossover step. So it's going to help you turn. But also it's going to help you to get back quicker, and it's a lot safer way to move, right? So I make that crossover step, and then I'm going to get into this position, make this right to left, but I get into the racket drop. And if you can see my racket, see how it's aligned with the right side of my body, and the butt cap's pointing all the way to the sky. I'm going to lead up with the edge of the racket, and right before contact, I'm going to pronate. All right, just like that. So the backhands, that overhead's a complete opposite. So two scenarios, things may happen. You may be playing in windy conditions, or you may misread the ball. You may go back for the overhead, and then you have to switch. But just notice how I take a crossover step. What that's going to do, it's going to allow me to turn and get into this position. Now, if you read it right away, then the first step you're going to make is going to be a crossover step. You're going to keep moving back into position. I'm looking over my shoulder, and you'll notice how I have my racket now in this position. It's kind of like the opposite of the racket drop, right? It looks very similar. And what I want to do is I want to lead with the edge of the racket, and now instead of pronating, I'm actually going to supinate, turn the other way. So I lead with the edge, and I'm going to twist up like this. Now the finish, you'll notice how I'll start to go over. You can be very careful with your shoulder, but if you just focus on leading with the edge and then turn the racket out here, the resultant force may carry the racket over, all right? So just be careful of that. And the other thing to be aware of is the grip. So what I'm demonstrating is grip 2, a continental, and I like to use this anytime you have your back towards the net, anytime you're playing an emergency shot, you should be on grip 2. So some players, you may be more on a strong forehand grip 2.5, or even a 3, some players. So it may look a lot different, because if I'm on a grip 3, my racket's going to look a little bit different. If I try to lead with the edge, it's probably going to turn too far away from my target. So you've got to make subtle adjustments. So the key thing here with grip on 2, then you can lead with the edge, and then all you got to do is just, we say supinate, or just twist up, and those strings will face towards the court. So that's the one adjustment you got to be aware of, is what grip you're using. But on grip 2, that's what it would be like. But let's take a look at a slow motion example and show you how we hit the backhand overhead.
Okay, let's take a look at that in slow motion. Now let's take a look at another example. This is a little more difficult feed. And notice how sideways I get my body, looking over my right shoulder. And I get into what I call the reverse racket drop position. And see how I'm leading up with the edge of the racket up towards contact. See, the racket turns out, and notice how the strings are almost vertical at the contact point. My back is turned all the way to the net, but notice how my eyes are still fixed at the contact point. Now my racket's going to continue to go over, and then it quickly comes back around, but just be very careful in this position.
So I'm just going to show you how I'm working on a few backhand overheads. Going to start up close, make it easy, and then we're going to start to progress it. We'll have to move back and hit it. So let's start up. I'll be up at the net hitting or easier overheads where I don't have to move back, all right? You'll notice how I'm basing myself on this left leg, all right? So I'm just getting on this left leg, and we'll see it again. So I'm looking over my shoulder here. Now, as it gets further over my head, I start to finish a little bit further over, all right? So this one, see how I completely had to turn my back, and you'll see the finish is a little bit different. Okay, Nadim's going to give me more challenging feeds where I have to move back. So let's take a look. All right, that's another one. Now you see I'm really making sure I base myself with this back leg, and when that ball gets behind you, it's coming from a high trajectory. Make sure you're really twisting up to contact, right? If you don't, you're going to miss them in the net. All right. right, so there I had my back completely turned, the ball got over my head, and you'll probably notice how my racket went further over, all right? By really focusing on leading with this edge and then turning the racket out. All right, it's not an easy shot to master, but certainly it takes a lot of practice. And there you go again. See another one. And see one more here. All right, just like that. So my main focus was trying to get stable right before the hit, lead with the edge, and then turn the racket, twist the racket up. And the further back I was, the more I had to swing up, and the more I found the racket would continue a little bit over. But be very careful when you do this. You don't want to go back too far over and hurt your shoulder. All right.